pregnant and penurious. Hey everyone, hi, welcome or welcome back. I'm gonna get a haircut soon. My hair is driving me absolutely bananas, so I don't know, I just thought I'd let you know. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about new releases in historical fiction recommended by a New York Times columnist, and her name is Alita Becker. I'm excited to talk about her choices, whether I'm interested in them or not. And if you're new, know that this is something that I do. I like to keep up with new releases. I have a special place in my heart for historical fiction, and so this is just something I enjoy doing. I haven't covered all the months of historical fiction that Alita Becker has, like all of her columns for this year. If you want me to catch up and go through all of the columns that I've missed, let me know. Otherwise, I'll try and, if editing self, like organized self of the future, remembers, I will try and leave a playlist of these videos that I've done where I look at Alita Becker's recommendations. So she always has four historical fiction recommendations. If you're new, consider subscribing, but let's just go ahead and get into the meat of this video. The first book she recommends is This Here Is Love by Princess Joy L. Perry. What a fabulous name, by the way. Okay, so this is Alita's description, her pitch to us about the book. Despite its title, you'll find very little uncompromised affection in This Here Is Love. It's going to be put out by Norton. It's going to be 372 pages and it will run you about $30. Set in the early years of the Virginia colony, Perry's searing first novel never flinches from the brutality of plantation life. In a twist on the horribly familiar depictions of slave ships, we're shown a hold filled with Britain's most miserable, including a Scots-Irish family desperate to believe that indentured servitude will lift them out of poverty. That is a horrifying belief. That is a horrifying belief. In another twist, we're introduced to an industrious black planter scheming to buy freedom for his wife and children. But inevitably, we also encounter an enslaved mother and daughter who can't save themselves or their feelings for each other from the cruel whims of their owners. With steely empathy, Perry probes the complexities and contradictions of a society built on bondage. How does a white boy who is devoted to a helpless infant sister and toiled alongside slaves learn to become the kind of man who owned another? Ooh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. How can somebody from that situation then be the perpetrator of that situation? As we know about generational trauma, though, it's common, the concept is common, which is horribly sad, terribly unfortunate. Can two slaves forced to breed people who knew their place forge any kind of unfettered alliance? Will the swamps and the frontier provide a haven for escapees, white and black, from the civilized coast? As she explores these questions, Perry's intersecting plots are gripping, but what's more impressive is the way she guides us through her characters' emotional depths. Okay, wow, that sounds like an incredibly heavy-hitting novel, just like a deep, thoughtful, emotionally charged novel. So if you're thinking about, a book like that, that might be something that you're interested in. I don't know. For me, I don't know. I'm always sort of open. I'm open to read almost anything. And then there will just be a time where I'm like, Shelly, just make a decision already. And often, I don't know, and then I'll make a decision whether I pick it up or not. But that sounds interesting. And I think one has to be in the emotional place in order to take on a novel like that. Might be wrong, but that's what it sounds like to me. Fonseca is the next book, and it is, wow, the cover is gorgeous. Wow, it is gorgeous. I want to draw this myself. It is really great. I don't know, I love the way that the skyline and the sky and the building meets. Like you see the ornamentation on the building, which leads into this just beautiful cloudy sky. Okay, I love the cover and I love the font and I love the yellow for the background of the font. This is great. So this is by Jessica Frances Kane. In 1952, the yet-to-be novelist Penelope Fitzgerald visited a deeply eccentric expat household in Mexico with her 6-year-old son, Valpy. 30 years later, she touched on this journey in an essay, but never wrote about it again. Thankfully, Kane was inspired to follow the trail, and in her latest novel, Fonseca, which is being put out by Penguin Press, it's 272 pages, deploys an understated wit and bittersweet wisdom reminiscent of Fitzgerald's own work. The setup seems to be made for a masterpiece theater miniseries. Our heroine, pregnant and penurious, has left her husband and daughter back in England after accepting an invitation to meet 2 wealthy, hard-drinking Irish women who profess to be in need of an heir. Already ensconced in the household are an Irish organist and his wife. In addition, a clutch of regular visitors to the Delaney's rigorous choreographed cocktail hours have their own plans for the legacy. Oh my gosh, so everyone's vying for the legacy of these Irish women. While Valpy hangs out with the omnicompetent Mexican housekeeper, Fitzgerald finds herself romantically tempted by yet another claimant, a charming American who insists somewhat dubiously that he's a distant relative. Oh my gosh, so everyone is vying for this fortune. I just read a book about people vying for a certain fortune, which was The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope, and it was fascinating. It was fascinating, very manipulative, and really interesting. So this is kind of, for me at least, the description is hitting those same notes. As befits an homage to Fitzgerald, the dividing line between fact and fiction is very blurred and very entertaining. So it sounds like we have a motley crew of characters coalescing in a singular household, all vying for the heir of a wealthy fortune. That sounds great. To be fair, I have this on my Kindle already, and I've been thinking about how I can keep up with new releases, and this is one of the, I thought about, oh, maybe if I read at least one new historical fiction release a month, or every 6 weeks, or every 2 months. Because if I did one every 2 months, then at least at the end of the year, I would have 6, right? 6 brand new historical fiction releases that I read for that year. And then I could have an opinion about it, versus just reading about new releases, right? So I've been thinking about that, and this book, Fonseca is sort of vying for one of the positions of books that I would like to read for this new releases journey that I want to start. So that's good. Let's look up Penelope Fitzgerald. Penelope Fitzgerald was born in 1916 and passed away in 2000. She was a Booker Prize-winning novelist, a poet, and one of her most notable works was her final novel, The Blue Flower, which was known or stated as one of the best historical fiction novels. The best historical novels. I'm guessing historical fiction? Let's look this up. So we're going on a tiny bit of a rabbit trail. I love this. Okay, so The Blue Flower was Fitzgerald's final novel, published in 1995, and it is based on Friedrich von Hardenberg before he became famous under the name Novalis, and it covers the years 1790, so it is a historical fiction novel about this person, who again, I don't know. Oh my gosh, I'm just encountering bunches of people I don't know, and I want to go on a bunches of rabbit trails, but we're going to stop. So it covers the years from 1790 to 1797, when von Hardenberg was a student of history, philosophy, and law at the university before he embarked on a professional life. So that's what this is about. Oh, the main character of The Blue Flower is a foundational figure for German Romanticism. Okay, so an interesting reading project could be like reading the new release and then also reading The Blue Flower or something by Penelope Fitzgerald, so that we understand how Kane, the author of the modern novelist, or the modern novel, the novel that just came out, has taken inspiration by someone who I guess sounds like a towering figure of 20th century literature, even though I don't know her. If you know her, tell me more about Penelope Fitzgerald. Okay, so rabbit trail aside, we're going to go back to our article. And this is, the next book is The Original by Nell Stevens. I read briefly A Delicious Life, which was Nell Stevens's debut work. It was okay. Some of it sung and some of it was kind of a flop, to be honest with you. And yeah, it was very middling for me. So Stevens' new novel is called The Original, and here is what our columnist has to say, Becker has to say. All these names are just like meshing. I've got Fitzgerald and Kane and Stevens and Alita Becker all in my mind, kind of vying for attention. Okay, so here is what Becker had to say. The Original, which is going to be put out by Norton Press, or has been put out by Norton Press, and it's 328 pages and will cost about $29. So The Original has many of the traditional elements of historical romance: a slightly seedy Oxfordshire mansion, a ne'er-do-well scion with a dodgy history, his domineering mother, and a female narrator whose presence is barely tolerated by the relatives upon whom she has been foisted. Also, a family history of madness. And yet, when the novel opens in the autumn of 1899, it soon becomes clear that conventions are about to be upended. Stevens' narrator, Grace, has a strange inability to remember faces. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder, she has a strange inability to remember faces. I wonder if that's, I don't know if this is the correct term, but I know of people who are face blind. Like one of my good friends is face blind, and he's a professor, and so he tends to remember students because of their backpacks, which is, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Just like struggles to remember facial details. Like if he closed his eyes and was like, what does Shelley look like? He couldn't exactly remember, whereas I don't know, I have like a okay facial recognition. But anyways, that's interesting. So Stevens' narrator Grace has the strange inability to remember faces, but she's uncannily brilliant at copying works of art. Ooh, that's a fascinating combination. While she's trying to break free of Inderwick Hall to make her living as a forger, and discovered that the feelings I have had about women were the feelings men have about women. Oh, so she's discovering that she's queer. And she also becomes embroiled in a scandal involving her long-lost cousin Charles, who has recently resurfaced in a grubby Roman atelier. The family lawyers insist he's an imposter. Oh, interesting. So we have layers of like fakery. So she's trying to forge her cousin might be an imposter. Okay, so Grace's widowed aunt insists just as vehemently that he is not. For Grace, there are possible benefits either way. Rest assured, though, that her route to a resolution will be decidedly unorthodox. Okay. That sounds interesting. Again, I think I would be more jazzed about it if I had really, really loved Nell Stevens' debut, but because I was meh about it, I feel kind of meh about this book. All right, and then the final book, the final recommendation is Pacific World by Peter Mann, or Mann. Between the two world wars, the writer-adventurer Richard Halliburton earned a reputation for outlandish daring-do. Then, in 1939, while attempting to sail a Chinese junk from Hong Kong to San Francisco, he and his crew were lost in a typhoon. The prospect of reviving a Halliburtonish character and launching him into a maelstrom of spies emigres, and double dealers proved irresistible to Mon, who demonstrated a knack for comic thrillers in his previous novel, The Torqued Man. Oh, interesting. Okay. Pacific World, which is going to be put out by Harper, it's about 400 pages, or it is exactly 400 pages, and will run you about $28, is partially narrated by Richard Halifax, hero to the devoted members of the Dickie Halifax Junior Adventurers Club, whose newsletter is the latest attempt to beef up the dwindling Halifax bank account. Gun running and industrial spying are all in the mix as well, but it's Halifax's acquaintance with the comatose literary editor named Hank Ranch, whose Thomas Mann-inspired dad lives in plush exile in Santa Monica, that ropes in the novel's other main character, Hank's twin sister, Hildegrand. Mysterious letters, disappearing military diagrams, and revival British and American agents provide more intrigue, as does a Nazi doctor conducting regeneration therapy in the middle of a coconut farm. There's even a guest appearance by a bordello proprietor with a passing resemblance to Sally Rand or Sally Rand. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that sounds really, really zany, and it sounds like somebody who really understands the time period in between both the world wars and is playing heavily with the vibe, the boom of maybe thriller novels or spy novels. Just knows this time period well and is enjoying all of the little Easter eggs that you could hunt out or fetter out from the novel. It sounds zany and wild, but like in a really incredibly fun way. And obviously one that's hard to describe, because even as I was reading through the description, I'm like trying to process too. And as I'm processing, I'm like, wow, this sounds convoluted, but probably in one of those ways that once you got in the novel, like it really meshed, and it really like sings. Otherwise, I don't think it would be recommended on this list. It would be like, this book is doing too much, but it sounds fantastic and fun. So I think, yeah, of all of them, Fonseca, I think that's what I'm called. Fonseca is what I'm still most interested in. And now I'm like very curious about this Penelope Fitzgerald moment. So Alita Becker has opened the doors to a curious room in my heart about this writer and about this book. So that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And I hope to see you all in my next one. Bye!